there's some big currency and bond moves happening, and we're going to look at it. What is the market telling me? This is the Nick Rutherford report, and the market is either going to take advantage of you or you're going to take advantage of the market. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, leave me a comment, share this with someone who would get a lot out of it, because this is the financial news that matters for your net worth. One of the biggest things that helps me sleep at night as an investor is watching the trends and making sure I'm benefiting from the trends and not losing money because I'm in a trend that's losing people money. Now, this is why I'm bringing up this article where Tencent revs up the stock buybacks as the Pentagon puts it on some sort of blacklist. Here's the thing. Everyone remembers a few years ago when the Russia-Ukraine war broke out and the entire West froze the Russian assets and made them untradeable. Now, this has illustrated to me that there's a trade war heating up as well as some sort of hot wars. And investors need to pay attention because when the government blacklists securities and makes them untradeable, well, if you're in that trend and in that trade, you're going to lose a lot of money because you're not going to be able to trade your securities or they're getting seized by the government. And here's the thing. This is a trend that we've been watching very, very closely. And this article is evidence of this trend continuing. There's been a lot of signs of this with the conflicts in the Middle East and the conflicts in around Israel and with Russia and Ukraine and all the rhetoric with China and with the new administration coming in promising to really amp up the protectionism and the onshoring and all of that sort of thing. Well, it makes sense that there's a trend intact for you to pay attention to. So if you're living in the United States, it might be a good idea to pay attention to this trend. So I'm living in the United States, so I don't want to be invested in assets where all of a sudden they could be seized or they could be deemed some sort of national security threat. And then guess what? All of a sudden, their value is not the same. And this potentially could be what's happening with Tencent, because this is just another step towards the trade war, towards the protectionism, towards the tensions rising. So this is not a trend that I want to be on, because next thing I know, another thing is on the blacklist and it goes down in value. So as an investor, I really want to be paying attention to this trend and investing in companies that are very well insulated from these rising tensions. So if you want to know exactly my favorite stock pick, you can go to rutherfordwealthreport.com and get my favorite stock pick for 2025. And I think investors everywhere should pay attention to this trend, because if you're investing in a company that makes all of its revenue in North America, well, when there's tariffs, when there's trade wars, when there's escalating tensions, you're not losing money because of it. Instead, you may even be making more money because more business is happening and doing in your geographic region. So another thing that I want to point out here today is this article where it says it smells like a trust moment as the UK gilts hit a 16-year high. Why am I talking about this? Because it seems to me like the currency is making big moves and the bonds are making big moves. Like, just look at this chart here. So here we go. You can see the 2-month net outflow from TLT is huge. It's bigger than it's ever been on this graph, and this graph goes way back for years and years and years. And this is signaling something important. Let me bring up the graph of TLT. You can see right now that we're almost hitting new lows. Will it bottom out at around here? You can see back a year ago it went way here as the interest rate went up and up and up. And for everyone who remembers, the Fed raised the interest rate a bunch. And in fact, the interest rate on the government debt went up and up and up. And it still seems like it's going up. It's gone up right now. Will this be the top? I don't know. But investors need to pay very close attention to this, because this could be signaling something huge. Could inflation be coming back? Could yields continue to rise? It seemed like when they got to 5%, someone behind the scenes did something to hammer them down. Will history repeat itself? I'm not really sure yet, but the chart I'm watching most closely is the Japanese yen, or the USD to yen, or the yen to USD, however you want to look at it, and you can see that it's a perfect inverse tracking this perfectly as the yen weakens and weakens against the dollar. Well, for whatever reason, the interest rate is climbing. The peaks coincide perfectly. And that is very, very interesting because, well, this trend all started in 2022. And I want to watch this trend closely. Heck, I don't know why this is happening. I don't even pretend to know why. And if other YouTube commentators are looking at it and they're telling us why, good for them. I don't even know how they could imagine they would know why. But my purpose in bringing this up is this trend I'm watching. I don't need to know why. All I need to know is this trend is happening. And when the trend shifts, there can be huge implications because there were huge implications when it started. You can see back here in 2022 when it really went up, and October 22nd of 2022 was the first peak. And that happened to coincide with the bottom in the stock market back in 22, more or less perfectly. So this is why this trend is something that I'm watching, because there was this synchronization, and it could be that there are lots of people in big institutions are borrowing in yen because it's getting weaker and weaker against the US dollar, and then they're buying US assets. So if this trend reverses and unwinds, there could be huge implications that could lose investors a lot of money if the winds change. So I'm watching it very closely because it's coinciding with everything. And I want to bring our attention back to TLT as it hits new lows, meaning the yields go up because there's an inverse correlation between the yields and the price of the bond. So if the yield's higher, the price of the bond is lower. If the yields go down, the price of the bond goes up. And everyone loves to say that this is the safest asset. In fact, in the last, let's just look at this over 1 year, it is down 11%. Yet if I go over to gold and I do 1 year over the last 12 months, gold is up over 30%. So this is the market trying to tell me something. It's telling me that what you know is to be safe isn't as safe as it used to be. So this is very interesting. I'm watching this very closely because if these trends change, then we could be in for a big problem. Now, what's very interesting to wrap up with here is the Atlanta Fed GDP Now estimates are coming in between 2 and 3%. Looks like 2.7-ish just from this graph here. I'm bringing this up because the economy is running hot. Even though there are big currency moves happening, it looks to me, well, the economic activity is still going. So that trend is intact, which makes me want to be long all of my investments that are really taking advantage of the U.S. expansion. And what I'm going to be watching for very closely over the coming weeks, because it's what's going to make investors money or cause them to lose money, is what happens with the magnificent big tech and the AI expansion. Because I'm going to want to see if Microsoft's earnings include lots of CapEx. Because if they're buying lots of chips from NVIDIA and lots of data centers and they're building that up, well, then the party's still on and investors are going to make money. If that trend changes, well, it could be the entire market will go into free fall. So I'm going to watch that very, very closely in the coming weeks. That's all I have for today. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time because I'm going to watch the market. It's going to tell me what to do. How am I using this information to protect and grow my wealth? Go to highreturnlowrisk.com.